Welcome back to Vicky 3 Academy. I'm Walker, and we're about to discuss Netherlands in our Basic Country Guide series today. So the Netherlands begins in 1836 in a pretty interesting position historically. The Netherlands was one of these areas that, like everywhere else in Europe, kind of just got rolled over by France during the Napoleonic Wars, and one of Napoleon's brothers was set up there as a nominally independent ruler. How many times have you heard that story before here on this channel? But in the aftermath of the fall of Napoleon, there was a really powerful state set up here in the Netherlands. The Netherlands had under its control in a personal union, Belgium and Luxembourg. And that meant that there was a unified Benelux state up here. But unfortunately for the Netherlands, Belgium had become sort of culturally and religiously especially distinct from the Netherlands in like the previous 150 years, because Belgium, unlike the Netherlands, had mostly remained under Habsburg control. And what that meant, of course, is that Belgium was very, very distinctly Catholic. Whereas up north in the Netherlands, very distinctly Protestant. And so that cleavage between those states kind of manifested in the time period prior to 1836 with a big rebellion here in Belgium. Belgium defeated the Netherlands and secured its own independence. And what that means for you is that you are missing out on the majority of your population now as the Netherlands, because here's 2.43 million, 1.64 million. You've lost an enormous chunk of your pops here, but you've also lost something absolutely critical. You've lost all your iron. You have no iron as the Netherlands, and so your start, generally speaking, is going to actually be meaningfully weaker than the start here as Belgium, even though you're positioned nominally as being a major power, whereas they are a minor power. They can crush you militarily if you aren't smart about your development. Let's briefly discuss the current structure of the government here as the Netherlands. You are a monarchy. You're a constitutional monarchy, though, and you have census suffrage, so you have immensely liberal laws when it comes to voting, which means that you can kind of count on democracy to help you out if you help out the parties that you want to work with, and you kind of do want to get rid of this guy. A petit bourgeoisie royalist, if you want to play with the House of Orange-Nassau, you can, but your population is so unbelievably low that you really do need to get down to, at a minimum, racial segregation. Really, you should be pushing for multiculturalism as the Netherlands, because you're going to have a very easy expansion, but you're going to desperately need pops. And multiculturalism plus expansion is a lot easier than relying on exclusively expansion. But other than the fact that you start with this incredibly liberal census suffrage law, your laws aren't bad. You have elected bureaucrats, which is one of these things that it's definitely worse than appointed bureaucrats until you get to huge population counts, and then elected bureaucrats becomes really, really strong. And so you have an incentive as the Netherlands to like really go out there and conquer, to take over parts of India or China, for instance, as the Netherlands with elected bureaucrats is a lot less expensive. Or you could take over Japan. That would be cool too. But unfortunately for you, you do have an incredibly weak landowner. And so there's no way you're going to be able to use corn laws to fix this stuff up. And so you're going to kind of have to rely upon your industrialists and your intelligentsia to help you out there. Fortunately, they can, because just looking at the governments and the laws isn't really going to tell you what is going on here in the Netherlands, not nearly as much as looking in your buildings. And so in your buildings, you can kind of get an idea why you have such a powerful petit bourgeoisie, but it's kind of artificial. Some of the things that you can do, for instance, is switch from handcrafted furniture over to lathes, and that'll change the ownership here from shopkeepers, who are going to associate with the petit bourgeoisie, to privately owned, which is going to give us capitalists associated with the industrialists. And so it's going to be very easy for you as the Netherlands to just update your methods of production. Looking around at your technology as the Netherlands, you have all of the level 1 technologies and none of the level 2s. So you do need to prioritize which level 2 technologies you're going to go to first. My recommendation personally as the Netherlands, because you start with so many paper mills and your goal probably should be to remove the power of the petit bourgeoisie as quickly as you can, would be to actually go into mechanical tools, then engines, then railways, because you really do want to switch on sulfite pulping as quickly as possible. But other than picking up mechanical tools, engines, railways, I think you do want to go ahead and prioritize picking up egalitarianism as well, because egalitarianism is going to dramatically transform the nature of your society by bringing in new pops. In terms of resources, not only are you missing out on iron, but you're also missing out on pops, and so you really do need to come up with a way to secure your own resources, which is where I think we can really begin the guide in earnest. I think the thing that you need to prioritize the most as the Netherlands is not necessarily retaking Belgium as quickly as possible, but making sure that you can become a protectorate of Great Britain. So we re-rolled until we got a protective attitude here. So now we've become a protectorate of Great Britain. What that means is now we have access to two things. One, we have access to the British market, which means the iron frame construction is going to dramatically increase the efficiency of our country, so we want that. The British Protectorate is going to do a lot more for us than just allowing us to get access to the British market and also British migration. It's going to allow us to expand without having them be our problem. If we had to fight the British anytime we declared war down here, it would be a disaster. But because we have a 20 stack and a 20 stack, and it's not just a 20-20, it's a 20-20 with mobile artillery and line infantry, we are going to be able to smash through here. By just directly conquering Zulu, we can ensure that we can build a port there and build up coal mines there without any sort of interference from anybody. Wow, yeah, look at that. So also our general died, and that can happen too. So now the Petit Bourgeoisie, they're at 18.7% from a 38% by just increasing our methods of production. And so don't be intimidated by that starting power over there. You can very, very quickly get yourself to the point where you can use the Liberals instead of whatever conservative party you start with. All right, and then Zulu just backed down. That can happen too. Go ahead and build up a port. You are going to need a port in order to do what's next. But what's going to be next for us is, of course, we're going to conquer Transvaal and Orange. And by picking up these pops, and more importantly, this enormous amount of coal and iron down here, we are going to dramatically increase the strength of our economy. And it's not going to really be that hard. All we need to do in order to accomplish this is make sure that the British aren't interfering with us. And the easiest way to accomplish that is to make sure that you become a protectorate of Great Britain. All right, well, it looks like Orange has indeed decided to fight us, but unfortunately for them, our troops are just going to be a lot stronger, right? We're going to have line infantry and mobile artillery, and they are not. And that's really kind of going to be the story down here. It might seem a little strange that I'm recommending that people prioritize coal and iron, given that we're going to be part of the British market and therefore have access to British coal and iron. But I really do think that it is going to be very powerful for you to have access to your own resources, because I don't think that you want to be part of the British market forever. I think that's where people start to hit issues. Yeah, if Portugal ever elects to intervene against you, don't worry too much about it, because the Portuguese navy is usually not going to be strong enough to fight yours. Don't sweat it if you have to fight them. And then, of course, once you've picked up the Boer Republics, there's always going to be an issue in regards to your money as the Netherlands in the opening if you're expanding like this. But I think that there's a really easy solution, and it's going to be this. It's going to be conquer Formosa. I think rather unironically, this is actually kind of what I think your meta should be as the Netherlands here in Victoria 3. I think your goal should be to get the band back together. So you pick up the Boer Republics. For those of you who don't know, there was a point in time when the Dutch actually laid claim to and had control over a good chunk of Taiwan. And of course, now we are going to be winning ticking war score. So we're going to get this. The Qing are not going to be able to take Taiwan back. And so our 20 stack lets us land on Taiwan, occupy it, win this war. Then we'll have Qing war reparations to pay down all our debt. Not to mention that we'll have Qing war reparations for 5 years. And so we can probably, once we've won this war, we can almost certainly afford to expand our construction sector, which is going to be really helpful. I do recommend saving the invasion of Taiwan until Qing has the widespread opium addiction penalty, however. And there it is. Now we're getting 28k in war reps from Great Qing. Do note, of course, that if you become a protectorate of Great Britain, then you are going to be limited to a major power and only a major power. You can never become a great power while being a subject. So eventually you are going to need to become independent from Great Britain, but that's where you really should be focusing on making sure that you understand the way to develop an economy. Make sure that you do a good industrial loop. Make sure you have coal and iron and tools and rail and wood. And then you should be fine for any sort of declaration of independence. There are going to be economic impacts to you whenever you declare independence from the UK, because you, for instance, won't have access to British demand or British goods anymore. And so when you get to that point, make sure you have a bureaucracy surplus and a convoy surplus, so that way whenever you declare independence from Great Britain, if you need to supplement by bringing in either demand or supply, or probably both, you can. But yeah, there we go. The Dutch can very quickly start to piece their overseas empire back together, which I think is probably the best line for you as the Netherlands. If you want to get really, really spicy and lucky and re-roll until you can get to a point where no one intervenes to protect Belgium, you can, but I don't think it's necessary. I think you can do a lot with the UK in terms of your expansion without relying on luck. You can and should take Formosa and war reps. That one's really important, and I think as the Netherlands, if you're not doing that in your first couple of years, you're missing out on an enormous amount of growth in terms of both money and pops. But other than that, I think the gameplay for the Netherlands is very fun. You will use your navy a lot. If you don't mind cheating, you can do this. You can establish a colony here, and then you can expand the East Indies administration. And wow, you colonized that so quickly. Look at that, we colonized almost the entire island in one day by abusing a bug. You don't need to use bugs to do well as the Netherlands. I really do think all you need to do well as the Netherlands is be friends with the British, either because you're a protectorate or because you're in their customs union, and then just like fight people. You have a huge navy. Go ahead and use it. You really can't go wrong. You might end up fighting a war or 2 or 3 for control of India, because, you know, that's all of this here. This could all be Dutch. It could all be Dutch. Just up to you. All right, that's Walker. Take care.